Are you ready for the ultimate bikepacking weekend adventure? Join us for an unforgettable self-supported bikepacking trip through Southwest Virginia. The Grayson Gravel Pie Bikepacking Adventure travels along the Virginia Creeper Trail, the beautiful gravel roads of Grayson County, Virginia, and the New River Trail. All lodging and camping arrangements are included, along with daily routes and guides riding along with you. This self-supported adventure offers resupply opportunities every 20 miles for your food and water needs. Find out more at graveltraveldirt.com.
You're listening to Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt.
Hey, I'm Joey.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Jess. We went out of order, and that screwed me totally up.
And that was Blake under there, if you heard him.
This is episode 164 of Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt. So if you're new here, this is the podcast where we talk about gravel bikes, adventure biking, bike packing, bike camping. This week, the Croatan Buck 50.
Woohoo!
And the 2022 winner, Ian Boswell. Or we're just playing bikes. Did you guys have a good weekend? We're going to get into the whole depth of it, but I just want to hear you had a good time.
An amazing time.
Excellent. And I want to send a special thank you to Matt Hawkins right at the top of the show here.
That was awesome.
Mr.
Matt,
Rich Supply.
He did a fantastic job and pulled off an incredible event. But joining us a little later is Mr. Ian Boswell. Now, for the majority of our listeners, he's going to require no introduction. But if you are new to gravel or cycling in general, Ian is a former professional road cyclist, raced in 3 different Grand Tour events, La Vuelta, Giro d'Italia, and the Tour de France. Ian raced for Team Sky and Katusha before retiring in 2020 following a 2019 crash in Italy, which left him suffering from long-standing concussion symptoms. Now, although he was offered a team spot with rally cycling in 2020, Ian made the decision to turn his attention to gravel cycling. In 2021, he won Unbound Gravel, and just last week took home the win at the Croatan Buck 50 in North Carolina. And Ian also hosts his own podcast, Breakfast with Boz, which I've listened to. I think you've listened to. I think we may have all listened to.
Which is why we did breakfast tonight before the podcast.
In homage to Breakfast with Boz, we had eggs and sausage and hash browns. Excellent.
Not fancy, but perfect.
No games today. We are all business, Jess.
We are all business.
So do you know what else is all business? Cutaway USA offers premium cycling apparel born in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Cutaway is an industry leader using innovative fabrics combined with clean, bold designs. Make sure to visit their website to see all of the jerseys, bibs, and other paraphernalia that they offer. Check out their website at cutawayusa.com. And when you reach checkout, use the code GTD20 to take 20% off your entire order. Now that's an offer that is a special discount just for our listeners. Jess, let's dive right into Croatan. I want to hear all about
Sector 4.
Your adventures of the weekend.
From start to go.
Well, first off, it was a great weekend with my 2 friends. So that was really it was not you two. I saw Joey signaling back and forth, and no, it was not you two. I actually went with some girls this time.
Excellent.
And it was a really good weekend.
Look at the mic.
Sorry.
You're paying attention to Blake. I know it's
Blake
hard.
is
It's hard not to.
horrid at me.
No.
See?
Mm-hmm.
So we started off with we stayed at an Airbnb.
Over on the beach.
We stayed like by Atlantic Beach, and which was really nice. I slept in a room with Amanda, and my snoring did not bother her, so that was really good. We did the 60-ish. We did the first lap of the 100, so we did more than the 50 because we did that lollipop in the middle. Which was very long, and the lady told me it was very short, but it was very long.
It felt long in that grass.
It felt very long in that grass. That grass was the hardest part for me. Sector 4 I really liked, and when we were reflecting on the way home, I said that was my favorite part of the weekend.
So for folks that don't know, Sector 4 was sort of the gnarly, muddy, sandy, been just recently dug up section, of course. We'll talk about
There's a great video on YouTube about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my favorite part of the weekend. I rode my new bike. I rode my Joey. Chime in what bike I rode.
Crux.
The 2022 championship bike of Croatan, the Specialized Crux, as we better call it, but it is the Crux Expert.
With little electric shifters. I only missed shift once, so that was really good.
Aren't you glad you rode that bike?
Yes, I am. I thought my Diverge would have been a really shaky bike. It makes noises because of the Joey chime in.
Shifting.
Future Shock.
Because of the future shock, it makes a lot of rattling noises, especially when hitting potholes. So I'm really glad I didn't ride that bike. The new bike, the Crux, felt very great. It felt smooth, for as much as smooth as we could have figured out, because there was a lot of potholes. So yeah, what kind of tires did I ride, Joey?
Terravel. What were those Teravels that we both had?
The Washburn?
The Washburns? Yeah, they were like the Terravel version of the Pathfinder. 42s. She's never been able to run a 42 or frame set like the Crux or the.
That's probably why you enjoyed Sector 4 so much, is you really had some substantial
tireage. I
tirage.
did, and that was where my misshifting was. So I shifted wrong.
Tell everyone what it did with your shifting.
Yeah, Joey rode easy and hard on the handlebars.
And it worked.
However, the Nittany frame bag was covering it. So I had to move it a little bit. And I should have moved it a little bit more in Sector 4 so I wasn't confused. But Ted helped me out. I saw a GTD jersey. I was like, thank goodness someone was here. So that was really good. Okay,
Excellent.
Ask me questions, friends. Ask me questions you want to know about.
What was you said that Sector 4, which is surprising, was your favorite part of the field.
Yes.
What did you think of the cornfield?
The cornfields were really, really difficult. Riding my bike on the grass was much harder than riding my bike on the gravel. And at few points I was like, oh, this is why Joey called it hero gravel, is because it was pretty fast. However, when we got to places like Sector 4, there was some manipulating of the bike that I had to do. There was some making sure I was in the right gear and stuff like that. So I got to learn that on duty, on like patrol with that.
Sure.
Because what happened is I think I shifted to my hardest gear, and in Sector 4 I couldn't even push down that hard.
Okay.
So Ted spun the back tire and shifted all the way down so that I was able to be in my lowest gear.
Right.
Because I think I got it up in the highest gear, and then I was like, my bike's not working. It's not even pedaling.
Right.
And I actually said, I was like, Joey said pedal, pedal, pedal in his last message, and I can't pedal, pedal, pedal because I can't like push it. And then Ted was really great and shifted it down, so I was able to do it.
So the section that you referenced, the grassy section, I rode that on the long weekend as well as so that was a section that was past the first rest stop, that was an extra loop to get to 60 to allow the Buck riders to get just over 100 miles. Actually, it ended up being 106, I think, or I had 108 for the day. And I will agree with you that you come up that gravel, the sand / dirt road, you make that right hand turn, and it's sort of that lollipop that comes back down, and it's probably a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles of just grass.
Yeah,
and it was probably the slowest portion of the course.
Correct. And that's actually where the wind started for us.
Right, because you had just turned into the headwind.
Yep. And that was when the wind started getting to us. The pros passed us, and they came into the rest stop really, 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 really quickly. And I was just like talking to some volunteer about St. Jude and whatsoever. And these guys like whooshing, they pee off their side of their bike. They're yelling for things. And I was like, whoops, sorry, wrong spot. Like, because I was just literally standing in the middle of the rest stop.
Oh. And did you get any more $1 bills besides the one that I gave you?
I did not, but thank you.
No.
That was my step in the right direction.
We were trying to get like a...
I got some, but from another way.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you. It was great to see everybody there. We could have done the 100. I really could have pushed through it mentally. I could have.
But did you enjoy the day?
I did, and that's the thing is I love seeing you guys come in. Like that was our favorite part. Is we rode our bike, we had a lot of fun, we got to hang out at the party, we got to like get all the I fell in sector 4, so I was really muddy. I got to get the mud off, and then I got to literally sit on a bench and listen to Joey and watch you guys come in, and that was really, really fun.
So I know when I got back and you guys were there, you actually had mud like on your face.
I did.
You were
did.
in it to win it.
I fell in sector 4. I didn't fall in a puddle like Amanda did, but I did fall.
Oh, Amanda fell in a puddle.
Amanda fell in a puddle, and she had like this little rag in her bag. I think it might have been a gator from when we were all running through COVID, and she was like brushing herself off with it, and we're like, just keep going. Yeah. They were nice. They waited for me. I was the slowest one out of the 3 of them, but they were pretty nice. They just waited for me. At one point I got a little grumpy, and that's kind of when the wind kicked in. We knew we weren't doing the 100. We knew we wouldn't get the time off, so I just rolled with my aftershocks. I put them in, listened to some
there you go.
Listened to some Taylor Swift and Chris Stapleton, and just kind of plugged in for a little bit just to get myself out of my head.
Did you guys try to work together in that wind coming back? Did you?
We should have a little bit more, and that's what happened. Nadine jumped on a pace line because when you guys were coming in and all in a line, and we were just like out and like riding without being in a line and stuff like that. So we were trying to do that. But the part we tried to do it as was after sector 4, and there was just a lot of potholes.
Yeah.
So we were trying to dodge potholes and stay in line and with the wind. But that wind was gnarly.
Did the potholes give you any grief?
No, I actually liked the potholes.
Okay.
Because it was like dodging like large craters in the moon. Like, because there was like, when Ted said all I did was dodge potholes for 140 miles, and I was like, I didn't understand. I was like, okay, whatever. But then after I rode, I was like, nope, I really did just dodge potholes the entire time, like trying to get out of. In the beginning, when we all started, we were trying to talk and meet people, and then we were trying to get through the potholes too, and that was too much.
I remember when, coming back from the long weekend and talking to y'all and kind of trying to give you a little bit of intel, it was like, just don't lose focus.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the potholes, and don't be afraid to use the edges of the road.
Yeah,
if you needed to.
And we did. The edges of the road worked out. I rode with that dog a lot. Did you see the pictures of the dog getting pulled?
Trailer, yeah.
I read that guy's bio, and I was like, wow, he was an inspiration. But we like talked about dogs. I was cheering on Hunter. I love dogs, so
cool.
It was a great day. The girls already planned our trip back.
That was my next question. It's like, would you do it again?
We were all ready to go. We were already planning our trip back, saying what we had to do, especially being so early in the season. We knew that we had to get outside for more miles, even if it was cold out, but making sure we did get out for some miles, just because the gravel was fine. The Hero gravel was fine. But the mud and everything was something I've never ridden in before. So
besides training differently, what would you do different for the race itself, if anything?
Training would have probably been the number one thing. I wasn't sore. I wasn't tired the next day. Just time. It took me a long time to get through some of the sections. And it also just took me a long time to get through like that flat cornfield and stuff like that. Probably just train a little bit more. That would have been the goal or objective.
Now, you did a lot of your training on the Peloton.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was an issue at all? Or
the
yes or no?
only part I think it was an issue was Joey had my bike set up pretty aggressively. So my handlebars were pretty far down. I definitely want to get a fit for the crux because it was a little bit more aggressive than I wanted to.
Okay.
And my lower back, because the crux was lower, the seat was higher and the bars were lower than my Peloton, like the adjustments, or
I know what you mean.
It was just more aggressive than my Peloton. My Peloton sits much higher up. It's much more upright, where my crux was fitted a lot more downright.
So the Peloton, you would say, gave you the fitness, but it didn't quite prepare you for the feel of the bike.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
and that's just something, I never rode that bike before. Even my Diverge, I think, sat a little bit higher up than my Crux did. But that was my first time riding the bike. So it was just, it was a shot in the dark if I was going to be able to do it or not.
Yeah. Well, I did. Was there anything else you wanted to?
I do want to say that the Crux is a lower, more aggressive style bike than the Diverge.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so
And it's things that, I just wouldn't have been able to do because I didn't have the bike.
but that's also what's going to allow you to have that one bike. I mean, you're going to be able to. That's going to be a fantastic road bike as well as.
I was so glad I had
gravel bike.
gears in some sections of that road, especially the cornfield. The cornfield was the hardest for me.
Yeah, and it was tough to pick lines through the cornfield too, because unlike Sector 4, where the lines over the course of the day evolved and were very apparent, the cornfield had just tracked everywhere.
Yeah.
And you really kind of had to, you weren't sure what was going to happen.
And that's why I liked riding behind the dog, because the dog's base was really wide.
Mm-hmm.
So when the dog was riding through Sector 4, I was like, I'm just going to stick behind this guy and keep going in his lines, because that's what...
See, that's what you do. That's smart.
Yeah.
You just pay attention.
And he blocked a lot of the wind.
Yeah, excellent.
And even though after the halfway point, he wasn't there because he just did the 50, it was really nice to talk to him. He was a really strong rider. The dog was super cute, so.
That dog was ready to go at the start line.
It was amazing.
He had his goggles on and he was
so cute.
barking. You could tell that dog knew a
hero
race
of
was
the day.
He knew the race was coming and he wanted to get in it.
Yep.
So I did the long weekend. I went down with I went down with Ted and Larry was there, and we went in on Wednesday and then spent Wednesday night at the track. And then a whole bunch. There was 11 folks that did the long weekend. Myself, I already mentioned Ted and Larry, Ashley, Charles, Jamie, Jose, Justin, Mark, Michael, and Rob. All these folks took on the long weekend, which ended up to be 70 miles from the Speedway out to Flanners Beach, and then 70 miles back. And then we all did our various and assorted distances on race day, but everybody actually did do some distance on the race day. It was hard. It was fun. And I would definitely do it again. Now, Matt asked us, this was the first year where he's kind of offered this front end bike packing adventure trip as ahead of the race. And he asked us he was looking for some feedback. And I'm not really sure quite yet what kind of feedback I'm actually going to give him, because I thought it was going to head in one direction, and now I'm thinking, well, maybe it's going to go back in the other. I'm not really sure. So one of the coolest things that I think we did on that was we rolled together. We had sort of a depart. Matt gave us a little send off at the track, and we stuck together. Although there was lots of separation over the course of the day, he took us to a lot of really cool little out and backs that were water views or kayak launches or boat launches that were on different pieces of water that run through the forest, which was really cool. And again, you would not see that on the race. So unless you're doing the adventure or you go out solo, like somewhere either before or after the event, if you're down there for it, you're not going to see these things. That was really cool. But we went to Harris Teeter on the way out in New Bern, and that was our dinner. That was... We talked about a lot of different ways to do it, whether it was going to be packing food out and cooking there, which I think some folks actually did do. I was thinking about DoorDash and some pizza in, but then we saw that the Harris Teeter was just a couple of miles off course, so we all rolled up into the Harris Teeter, and everybody, I think, pretty much went, and we basically invaded that Harris Teeter, which was fun, getting food and then kind of hanging around. It was very dirt baggy. It felt very dirt baggy. And it just was really unique and different. The campground at Flanners Beach, on point, great showers. I always judge a campground by the quality of their showers, and that one was really on point. Nice, quiet campground. We rolled back out the next day for our return 70. Now, there was a lot of separation in the return. People kind of left as they got up for the day. Everybody kind of had their own schedule. So you encountered people along the way. Some people... it cut a little corner here, cut an out and back there to kind of get some distance. But I would hands down do that all over again. It did make race day a little tough because we camped Wednesday night at the Speedway, Thursday night at Flanners Beach, back again Friday night camping at the Speedway, and then racing Saturday. Not a lot of sleep. And then going out and doing the Buck, which ended up to be, for me, it was 108 miles on on race day. I felt really strong, Joey, in the race. I felt good.
You look good.
I wanted to obviously finish. Then
You picked the right distance.
I think so. I enjoyed the day, and I think that's what's important. I wanted to finish strong. I wanted to finish well, and I actually did, in fact, finish middle of the pack, which was not really a target, but it was kind of like, I feel good about finishing middle of the pack. My day, I left the speedway. I hydrated, really hyperhydrated before we headed out. And unbeknownst to me, I actually didn't fill my water bottles up before I left.
Sounds about right.
So I was getting ready to, which in hindsight, though, actually worked out pretty well because I didn't carry that water weight and I didn't really need it to that first rest stop, which I was going to skip. But instead, I dove in, filled my bottles, threw a bit of scratch in my belly, and then went out to do that second lap. The second pass by the first rest stop, I actually did skip it. I skipped that, just kept right on rolling. That was the opportunity to come back into the wind for the first time. And I hooked up with some people. I hooked up with a couple of groups during the course of the day for probably 8 or 10 miles, but the rest of my day was pretty much spent solo, which is fine. It was the way I wanted to do it. It's the way it worked out. I wanted to ride my race, and not be dependent upon or responsible for anybody else. And that was how I did my day. And I felt good. It felt good. I did not think so. So when we did the second day of the long weekend, we actually came through Sector 4, and it was a lot sloppier on that day than it was on race day. It really, some definite lines appeared. And Joey, I did actually record with my GoPro the entirety of Sector 4 on the first pass out. And that is available on our YouTube channel. And I thought
10,000 views already.
I wish. It's not that long. It's like 11 minutes. But it gives you a pretty good idea. If you have a hard time explaining to people, if you did it and you have a hard time explaining to people what it was you did through Sector 4, that's probably a good way. You can just say, hey, go look at this, skim through it. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but skim through it, and you'll get an idea as to what the worst part of the day looked like. And that's really, it was. I don't know if it was like Jess said, it was, her favorite part. But for me, it was, it took a toll on my back, the third or fourth pass, because everybody had to go through it. If you did the 50, you passed through it twice. If you did the Buck or the Buck 50, you passed through it 4 times. And it was a little bouncy, and it kind of took a toll on my back. I would do that distance again in a heartbeat. I would not do like Ted and Larry. I'm going to give them major props. And I think Jose and a couple of the other guys that did the long weekend did the full Buck 50. That was 390 miles or whatever it was. No, 290 miles. I can't remember the math. It was 290 miles over the course of 3 days.
Just shy of 3.
Just shy of 3. Over 3 days. That's in that environment, and that was tough. And the real story of the day, I don't think was Sector 4, but in fact it wasn't the headwind coming back in. So that was my adventure at the Croatan Buck 50. One more time, hats off, Matt. Fantastic job. What an event. That many people, the laps around the speedway to start it, the lap around the speedway to finish, to bring it home. Just first class all the way around. So what did you do?
All right, what everyone's been waiting for. Just kidding. I called a sub-announcer. There was some announcers doing timing. Matt was doing stuff. I mumbled throughout the day, told people what to do, congratulated people as they came in. Was terrified. I was great until I kind of thought about doing the finish when it might be a sprint finish, and I know what Dylan Johnson looks like. I know what Mr. Ian Boswell looks like. There was another guy and some of the flow guys. And I go to Matt, and Matt's doing 1,000 things, and I felt horrible. I was like, dude, I don't want to butcher the finish line when you got these big names at your race. Like,
true that.
It's like, I'm good everywhere else. It could be easy. Thinking back, it could have been very easy, honestly. But I did have Matt come over for the the finish line.
Yeah.
When the top three came through. Because
probably-
they were duking it out, and I was like, all right, I don't want to just mess up who's coming across the line. Who came across the line? It was Ian, Dylan, and William, or what was the third place guy? I actually got to look his name up. Like Matt posted, he's a full-time banker in Charlotte.
That's wild. It's wild.
And he crossed the line with those two. Also, I could have cheated a little bit because I guess the timing people, when they come in the track, everyone gets caught. Like the time people would have known, so I could have been like, or at least I know those two. And yeah. Anyway,
you could have
hindsight. Hopefully, Matt lets me do it next year. I had no idea what I was doing. Never done it before.
You did a great job.
Got crispy.
You did a great job. I came back and you were in full stride. I don't know if you were nervous earlier, but by the time I got back, you were like Mr. Mike. You were like Magic Mike up there, like giving people, calling them to the podiums, and
I was doing a lot of podiums,
giving people direction and telling people what to do. And good job. Good job behind
organizing
the
the chaos. That's all I did.
Good job behind the mic.
No, it was
And
fun. I came down.
Not only did that though, you saved my day. You didn't talk about that.
We talk about when it was just seeing me. You were grumpy.
That wasn't grumpy. I came back in from long weekend day 2 to have a wheel suffering.
Oh yeah.
And I
actually forgot about that as a big snafu.
I had a spoke bust loose. It didn't break. It
Just loose.
It just got loose, and it put the tire. So I stopped before the cornfield on day 2, and
Your text updating me.
Yeah, I retensioned the spoke, and all was well for a little bit. But then, no, that was loaded too. Then that would come back in.
We need another wheel set for bike packing.
It kind of lost that tension, and then when I got back, Joe, you were very kind, and you spent time working on it and got it trued and tightened. But then I took it back out. I was like, we're wasting a race day for this to happen. So I took it back out and did a couple of miles and knocked it around a little bit, found some
Loosened
potholes.
up a little bit.
And it loosened, but then you pulled your
Funny
wheel.
thing is that bike wasn't going down. Just a tri-cross.
So glad that it did.
It was literally like loading up because I got a late start because of fog on Friday. I'm like, in case I do ride Sunday or someone basically if someone needs something, we'll use my Kona and we'll rob the parts. Didn't think the whole wheel set would go.
Well, it saved my bacon, so to speak, and I thank you for that because and kudo to the Atso Warrican with the sliding dropout. Didn't have to mess around. That seemed like it was a fairly straightforward.
Oh, I was pretty buzzed when I did that too. And it was dark.
Yeah, it was dark.
So thank Atso for helping a drunk bike mechanic in the dark make a nice, clean, simple wheel swap.
And it worked beautifully all day long.
Not just a wheel swap's easy, but flipping the flip chip and then
sliding
the brakes were no need to tweak anything. It was just ready to go. Drivetrain was solid. Somehow our spacing is the exact same. I didn't have to adjust the rotor because I was like, all right, I got to adjust the derailleurs, rotors, different wheel sets. No, everything was perfect.
Perfect. And it was, what it comes down to is that flip chip did the trick.
So my text updates real quick. There's some, I won't read them all, but at one point I got, the grid is brutal. You asked me for chain lube. It's like, okay, live lube, the grid is brutal. And I said, I brought some down. He said, right on, the sloppy stuff is kind of rough. Not much of it. Then I get, no good mechanic that could true wheel, LOL. I said, how far away are you? I said, I'm fine. Had a spoke come loose. Tightened back up. The other tension, it seems fine. We only had 12 miles, and it's road, I think.
And it wasn't.
And
that was
said,
Sector 4.
Every time I look at your location, you just get further away. It says, this wheel feels blank, but I'm only 4 miles out, so it's the only thing I can do. I'm finishing today. And then
and that was it, too. It's like if I wasn't going to be able to ride race day because I had a wheel problem, and I didn't know what you had back at the Speedway.
And everything, I came in clutch with the trailer.
Yeah.
Trailer was nice.
The trailer was on point, having all that space to kind of like call
Lock
home.
bikes up, and we needed to sleep in there.
Keep them out of the rain because we did actually have a little bit of
A little
rain.
drain the night before. Who likes getting on a soggy bike?
Yeah. So kudos. Great job all the way around. And I want to volunteer next year. I told Matt I would actually.
I don't think people realize how much work.
Oh, it's a ton of work. What I would very much like to do next year is come back, ride the long weekend, and I can ride, work it. I can run some point or do some stuff like as a volunteer on long weekend, and then I'd actually like to volunteer on race day because I think it's a ton of work. You see it going on behind the scenes, and just it'd be helpful. I think so.
There was. Yeah, in the beginning, I didn't have much assigned to me. was trying to do little odds and ends for folks. Matt, like I said, Matt was trying to do 1,000 things at once. Then I did the MCN, and I was trying to help out. And at the end, just like I said, I was picking up trash till like 8 o'clock at night, and it's so weird. Like we talked about it. Like most people were great there, but I don't understand all the people that leave junk. Someone's got to pick that up, right?
Police your stuff. We did that before we left. We did help police.
Oh no, we were. Yeah, I would
police
say
the trash.
But man, I did have some guy yell at me, and maybe he's a listener, maybe not. He had a trash bag that I threw away, but apparently there was some type of batteries in there. I don't know if they were for lights or something, and I chucked it because it was a trash bag. And he came and yelled at me. I'm like, dude, there's like a truck over there with like 40 trash bags. Go look at it.
So we had such an opportunity to meet so many people.
We met a lot of people.
And longtime listeners, people we call friends that we never even met.
First-time callers.
Ron, Dustin, all the outsider dudes.
Ashley was, I guess, got into it because of us, or got into Croatan and stuff, and he lives there.
Yep.
Had no idea.
Listened to us and jumped on the long weekend. I mean, as a new cyclist that hadn't even, and he actually, well, I'm gonna save that, but he actually shows up in this podcast a little bit later as well. But so many people.
The outsiders were rad.
Yeah.
They kept me rolling through the day.
So many people we want to have now. Also, support your race photographers. There were race photographers on course. Bruce Buckley, a couple others, I think. But go over there and buy your pictures, buy your photos. You'll find them. Look through them. You'll find them. You're probably in there. Support your race photographers. That's a smart thing to do. And I'll throw it out
Brett
there.
Rothmeyer and Bruce Buckley.
Yeah, and Brett was actually out on long weekend. He came out and was taking pictures of the long weekend, and he came to camp, and so that was really cool. It was just such a weekend full of just bike experience, community, fun, good times.
It was a blast.
So before we get Ian, you want to run through Strava Club real quick?
Yeah, I was going to say something else. You said no games. I don't remember.
No, it doesn't matter.
Strava Club, let's see. We did. We had a man day on Sunday. You didn't say that. We did absolutely nothing.
Yep.
I kept Brian down with me because I basically drove our shop trailer to pick up kayaks about an hour and a half away. Make one trip instead of driving back down this week separately. And then my friend who we were going to go fishing with ended up having some health issues. So we woke up, had Bojangles. I was like, let's go to this pier and sit for a little bit. And Brian's like, I can sit for hours. And I'd be like, yeah, I could too. And we sat for 2 or 3 hours just chatting and heckling surfers. You were doing yoga.
Mm-hmm. Yoga on the warm wood.
Then we decided, we were like, I want some fish tacos. We found a great, I wouldn't call it a taco shack. It's just a like beach shack that had, a menu was amazing. I would love to go back there.
We had some smoked tuna. Well, I had some smoked tuna.
Yeah, smoked tuna. I was pretty full. I had shrimp tacos that were just. Funny thing,
I was in eating mode at that point.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, like I was. My big when you get shrimp tacos up here or shrimp anything, like our shrimp isn't here.
Right.
It's not like down there where most likely you're getting shrimp from a local place. It's shrimp right from the water.
Yeah.
But it was great. We witnessed a car accident.
Yep.
So we moved inside so we weren't witnesses. And then we sat in a hotel room the whole half of the day.
We drove over to Warsaw and just jumped in the hotel room. And it was like unspoken too. We both just walked in, laid down on the bed, turned the TV
you put on college basketball. I'm like, all right.
I would randomly throw snap pops at it.
Yeah, Brian got snap pops. Oh.
I would tell you what, if you want to have fun, act like a kid again, buy yourself a little 25-cent box of snap pops and throw them at your friends every once in a while when they're least expecting it. The best one I think of was when you were going down the steps in the hotel and I threw one way up in the air and it landed way down in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, we basically did that till like 10 o'clock at night, watching basketball. And it's like, this was actually perfect day.
The perfect
I wouldn't have made it fishing with how sunburned I got. Being on my feet from like 6 in the morning till 8 at night. I
would have been sitting on the boat like trying to
I'd be like, this is more of an eco tour. So definitely couldn't have fished with a fly rod all day. But that was I think that wraps it up. Apologize to the long weekenders that I woke up with Marvin Gaye on Saturday morning.
It was perfect.
It was pretty loud.
You needed to do it. You needed to
I figured 6 o'clock. What a song.
I'm going to tell you what, getting up that little bit extra early, because I had an alarm set for 6:30, but getting up at 6, I was really relaxed going into like no panic mode of did I do this or did I do that? Yeah. Anyway, let's jump into Strava Club.
All right, Strava Club. We have Brian Dussault. I feel like I'm announcing again. From Feeding Hills, Massachusetts. So we have a masshole on here with 238.6.
Big week. Job.
Ashley Mangum. Sorry, that's Mangum. I have new glasses. From New Bern, North Carolina. Ashley did the long weekend with 154.8 miles last week.
Good job, Ashley. Ashley's a straight up noob gravel cyclist.
8 months.
And
didn't realize when he was living in New Bern and listening to podcasts that we were talking about his Croatan.
I know.
Which is the other, like, here's Swansboro and here's Croatan, or here's New Bern. And
I actually would like to get Ashley on the podcast to talk to her.
Especially as a newer rider.
As a noob, kind of thing.
And he's like one of us. No offense. He's like he's just an average dude. Average is what I saw. Averagely cool. Fairweather Steve from Austin, Texas with 241.3.
That's his name.
To break into the top 100, it went up a lot. We were at 126.9. I don't think we moved anywhere in membership. I think once I get all the outsiders in our Strava Club, which I want to be like the outsiders.
They were cool.
They're cool.
They're so
they
cool.
Had great beer from Fishtown. They had beer with their own club on it.
That's cool.
Did you get the can with the habanero?
Yes.
Oh,
that beer lit me up.
That
too,
beer,
but I drank it.
Was only 4.5%. Maybe it's 5.
Oh my goodness, it had a bite.
We had some good beer. So Dan from Jubilee, Strava Club, yeah. Dan from Jubilee brought us Jubilee Farms. Dan came down and volunteered.
Didn't he ride a bike? Just came down.
No, he rode Friday. He rode a little bit of the course. But he brought us some bourbon barrel aged stuff he's creating, and it's a low alcohol count. It is
good.
You usually get a beer like that. It's really thick and heavy. Oh, it was
delicious.
It was a right balance of flavor.
I told him at one point. I said, "There's only one thing wrong with this beer. My glass was empty."
Yeah. And between that and the Fishtown, some IPA habanero, it was like mango habanero.
It was mango habanero.
Holy
and that
cow.
was an ale. It was a mango habanero.
It was spicy at the end.
Their seltzer was good too.
They fueled me with seltzer too, and I had one in a hotel room I saved.
That's good.
Solid crew. I would go to any bike event with them.
Absolutely.
Yep. I met Pat. Pat came up. He's like, this is weird, but I'm Instagram friends with your wife. I was like, I'll be Instagram friends with you now too, Pat. And then
I know I'm leaving people out that we talked to.
We're leaving a lot of people out.
There's so many.
I was
so
actually
many. It was so cool.
After we talked about it from Unpaved last year, it felt way more normal. I had way more people come up to me this weekend than ever before. And I was what's the right word?
I don't know.
I don't know. It didn't feel. I don't know why it felt weird before. I'm just an average Joe.
Yeah.
But no, it was really cool.
So if you want to find us on Strava, strava.com /clubs/gravel travel dirt.
Got a little lost in the sauce.
Joining us now, Mr. Ian Boswell. Welcome, Ian. It is fantastic to have you on this episode with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's been a quick turnaround from Croatan, but back up in Vermont now, where it's a little bit cooler. But no, it's always happy to chat and happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I was in a Waffle House the morning I was messaging you. I was like, I was like, all right, I'll take my shot and see if Ian wants to try to, while it's really close in mind, go over this real quick.
So first off, congratulations on your Buck 50 win, but most importantly, congratulations on being a new dad.
Thank you. Yeah, both a lot to celebrate recently, but no, it was the first time we'd actually traveled with our daughter, and surprisingly, that's probably the biggest victory of the whole week coming down was that she didn't cry on the flight down or back. I've spent a lot of time on airplanes in the past, and you always, when the baby sits next to you, you're always like, oh boy, this is going to be a long flight.
Now that was
she's the real champ of the weekend.
December baby, right? My daughter I just had my first granddaughter born in December, so I'm right there in that sort of same window of time, and I'm doing granddad daycare right now. During the days.
Yeah, she was December 3rd or December 21st was her birthday. So it was also nice for her and my wife to get down. I'd taken 2 trips prior to coming down to North Carolina, out to California and Mexico. So I'd seen some sun so far this year, but my wife and daughter hadn't seen much sun yet. So they were super happy to get down there and spend some time on the beach.
That's cool, man. So you're up in Vermont, and we want to spend some time talking about the Buck 50. But before we get there, I'd like to spend just a little bit of time talking about you. Now, you grew up in Oregon and found your way to Vermont. How did that happen?
Yeah, I grew up in Bend, Oregon. A great place to be raised and ride bikes and be outdoors. And by the time I was, I guess, 18, I spent a year down in Northern California and then moved over to Europe when I joined Team Sky. And so I'd periodically head back to Oregon just to visit family and whatnot. And my now wife, she was out there after college. She's from Vermont. She was out in Oregon just after college, and we met at a bar. And yeah, I knew always wanted to live somewhere with a little bit of property, and kind of just settled on Vermont.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about farm life. What's farm life like?
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
I picked up a lot of pollen down at Croatan. It's still in my throat.
I did too.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I grew up in what was a smaller town, but it's grown a lot out in Oregon. And, I always really, I guess, growing up in the West, you always like have this, I mean, at least I did, like this desire to maybe not be a cowboy, but, to have some land and, have a tractor and all that. But yeah, moving to Vermont, I was kind of like able to make all those dreams come to life. And my wife, she also has a lot of those skills, gardening, and got 20 some odd chickens and a dog and a bunch of apple trees. So it's sometimes a bit over my head just with like all that I'm trying to do with racing and traveling. And, I know the pandemic was hard for so many people, but it was like such a great time for myself and my wife, just because we got to be home and like take care of everything. And we got all these other projects started and off the ground.
Now, any goats?
Not really thinking, no goats. We would love to get some livestock at some point, whether it's some goats, maybe, I don't know, some cows, some pigs. But at this point, we just don't have the time for it. So
that's something I've always wanted.
One thing at a time.
Goats seem to fascinate me. We spent some time at an Airbnb up in Connecticut, and it was a working goat farm. And the goats would actually come in the house. It was the most bizarre thing, but also really super cool to like go down in the morning and there's a goat in the kitchen. It was just strange. It felt very New England to me. It just felt very New England.
Yeah.
What's the gravel scene now? The gravel scene in Vermont is hot, right? I mean, you guys got it going on.
Yeah, I mean the crazy thing about Vermont is like almost 70% of all like main roads are unpaved. So even like we live on the corner of five different roads and they're all dirt. Just because the weather here in the winter, especially, the roads, deteriorate so quick if they are paved. So they just keep them dirt, and it's easier to grade them than it is to pave them, and it's cheaper in the long run.
Right.
So there's been like a long-standing culture of, I would say, gravel riding, although the gravel here is actually fairly similar to Croatan, pretty smooth, pretty buffed out. But, people who have been riding bikes for a long time here, they've been riding gravel essentially forever, because oftentimes the dirt roads are a lot better than the paved ones. And yeah, there's been some, kind of long-standing events up here that have, built a big name. And obviously, there's some decent riders up in this neck of the woods as well, with Ted King and whatnot. But we got a lot more climbing than you do down in North Carolina. It's hard for me to not get, 1,000 feet of climbing for every 10 miles, which is the polar opposite of Croatan. But, we also have long winters, which, you spend a lot of time riding indoors or skiing or doing something else just because, we can't really ride year round here.
Yeah, I led a tour up through New England, went through Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire, and I went up to scout it. It was a fall leaf peeping kind of a tour. It was a 3-week leaf peeping tour. And I went up to scout it, and I came back and I talked to a lot of the folks that were going to do the tour. And I said, now you got some thicker tires on your bike. That's what you're going to want to bring. And I had one tri-bike actually show up. And that was the roughest 3 weeks that she, I think, had ever endured on a bike. It was tough. That was the wrong bike for the wrong location.
So do you even own a road bike anymore? Or that's a dumb question, the way I said that.
No, I it's funny, I do, but I almost never ride it. Even today I went out and did a little hour ride, but I just rode my gravel bike, and the roads right now, it's like mud season, which is like probably the worst season to be driving, even worse than like ice of winter, just because like you get these deep ruts and like it's still frozen 18 inches down, but it's just wet mud on top. But yeah, I mean, I just ride my gravel bike all the time just because it's also more comfortable, especially on the dirt roads, and especially even on the paved roads where you have frosties and cracks, just a bigger tire. It's like, I mean, I'll still ride my road bike once in a while, but I'll almost, say that I probably would never ride a tire less than a 38 millimeter again, just because it's so much. It just feels safer as well, just having a bigger tire.
Yeah. So now the story of how you landed in gravel is really kind of a story of angst and triumph, quite frankly. And it's been quite the journey. Can you feel like you can share a little bit about that? So some of our listeners, our audience is a lot of mid-pack, back of the pack, and new gravel cyclists. So they may not know that backstory.
Yeah, so I raced professionally on the road. I guess since 2013, I joined Team Sky. Prior to that, I raced on Livestrong, which was like one of the better kind of American development teams. And I signed with Team Sky. Spent 5 years with them, and then 2 years on Katusha. And the whole time I was living in Europe, racing on the road. So I did all the 3 Grand Tours, the Giro, Vuelta, and Tour de France. And then in the spring of 2020, I had a really bad crash and had another concussion, which was a series of multiple concussions. So I didn't race the rest of that year, and kind of throughout the summer was deciding, what am I going to do next? I kind of felt like, I don't know if I want to go back to living that lifestyle, because you just put yourself in so much risk, racing down wet mountains in the Alps. It's like you have to hold the wheel in front of you, and got to the point where I decided that I wasn't going to race professionally on the road anymore. And, I had a good connection with some folks at Wahoo Fitness, which is based down in Atlanta. And I said, hey, they're a growing company at the time, and like, we're looking for someone to kind of take over and start kind of managing a lot of our athletes and, team relationships. And I had no degree in marketing or in, any sort of business. But yeah, they kind of, threw me a Hail Mary and said, hey, like, we'd love for you to kind of take this on. And I started that January 2020. And kind of as the season got started, obviously I was going to be going to events anyways, just different events that Wahoo partners, including, Croatan. And I still, I guess kind of backpedaling here a little bit, but through 2019, from when I crashed in March, I slowly through the summer, like, started riding my bike a little bit more, but spent a lot of time, just recovering and trying to figure out, like, am I able to ride again? Do I feel safe and comfortable riding again? Later that summer, I actually went down to UNC and saw some doctors there, because they have a really good concussion facility, just with, a lot of the football players, NCAA sports players that they see. So yeah, I, took this job with Wahoo and, kind of fell in love with riding my bike, because I wasn't all of a sudden being told that I had to ride my bike. It was more like, cool, I get to ride my bike, and I love riding my bike, and it makes me feel good. And, I get to meet new people, and kind of reshuffled like my perspective of what cycling is. For the longest time I was doing cycling just for myself, just to go fast, to be the best I could possibly be, and, making all sorts of sacrifices to be the best. And then I just kind of took a step back, and, I was like, oh, like, people just enjoy riding, of all speeds, all bikes, all levels. Yeah. So just through my role with Wahoo, I was like, I'm going to be going to these events anyways, which, gravel was kind of just really, it was already big, but it was really taking off. So I figured, hey, I might as well, I'm going to these events, I might as well participate while I'm there. And, the pandemic happened in 2020, didn't go to any events. And then, 2021 came around, and did a race down in Arkansas, the Rule of 3, and then did Unbound. And yeah, everything went a lot better than I had thought from a results standpoint.
So it went really well.
That was just yeah. But I think a lot of that was just a byproduct of, I've always enjoyed cycling, but I'm just having fun with it now, and there's not pressure. And, it's so cool, these events, especially, coming down to the Southeast, like, you just meet so many different people who, you kind of you would never run into if you're racing in Europe on the road, and just to realize that there's so many people riding bikes of all different, styles and speeds and disciplines. And it's just been an awesome, like, kind of reawakening to how beautiful the sport of cycling is, and to really kind of, be a novice again. Obviously, I've done well as far as, performance recently, but, even the night before Croatan, like, there's all these riders from Flow Formula. We're staying at this house out on Emerald Isle, and they're all like, oh, like, what tire pressure are you riding? Like, what kind of chain lube are you using? I'm just like, this is what I got. Like, I don't know, you guys tell me what to do. So it's kind of fun to just be back in this element of, like, feeling like a kid again, just going out and riding your bike.
That's a huge triumph there. That is so cool. That is to take something that could turn, quite frankly, that concussion thing that we're all hearing so much about and dealing with. I have a personal connection to that. My wife and I were in a car accident back in 2012, and she, eventually was diagnosed with TBI, and she went through an occipital nerve decompression surgery in the back of her head, and it's a massive life changer, and to have taken that instead of changing it for the worse, to change it, quite frankly, as a triumph, is a better. I applaud you for that. That's a lot of people may have just curled up. So good job.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I saw, and I guess my wife saw probably more than I did, but how miserable I was not being able to exercise. That's like the one thing that just daily brings me joy, just to get out. And that was the thing. When I was racing on the road professionally, it was like, I had to do 5 or 6 hours. Now it's like I got out today for an hour, and I was like, this is awesome. I got an hour free break, and it was sunny, just to get out and ride. And it's something I'm still very aware of. Like I take a lot more caution in these gravel events. And compared to professional road racing, it is a lot safer. You can riders are further apart, and the races just separate quicker. You can kind of take your own lines. You're not really forced to close these gaps just because the speeds are a bit slower. I had a series of like 6 pretty bad concussions and some brain bleeds and stuff. So it was pretty scary. So to be back like racing is like, cool. Some people are like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, but I mean, what's the alternative? Like, I'm pretty miserable if I'm not out riding my bike. I'm a difficult person to be around if I don't have an outlet to, burn some of this energy off.
I mean, how was it like, I don't know, like with your wife, like this past weekend, you were able to take the whole family down to the beach, enjoy it. I doubt you could probably do that back in the road racing days. And like, was it a little more relaxed and such? I'm assuming. Oh
yeah, it's way more enjoyable. We were out. My brother-in-law actually lives down in Raleigh, so we went down there like the Monday before, and we got to go out and all just the simple things of enjoying going to the South. Hush puppies and fried fish and all that. Stuff that you would never be able to do on a pro road cycling team. I mean, it's like you really just get to enjoy the places you go and the places you see, and you get to taste it and feel it and smell it. And you do that a bit when you're racing professionally on the road, but it's, like I said, I get to do it kind of in my way now versus, with a team, you travel the world, but you're kind of in this bubble. And all of a sudden, it's like, we've entered the minivan, we got to drive around, and we got to, see all different places, the before and after Croatan, you got to go to the beach and put our daughter's, feet in the water. And it's just little things like that, that you also feel just like a normal person. You just happen to also still go to this bike event, but you can make it more of a kind of a holistic experience rather than just, going there for myself to do my thing.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the time I was traveling as a race mechanic for Continental stuff, I travel all these cool places, but never actually
get to enjoy them.
Yeah, people were like, "What do you were out in Breck Epic or something like that, or working like Tour Utah or something like." I was working the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, you never get to take in the cool stuff.
So
exactly, yeah.
In your opinion, what's the biggest difference in the culture of the people between road cycling and gravel?
I mean, I'd say it's way more. I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but it's more inclusive. There's no definition yet of what. I mean, gravel has kind of been defined now. Just the fact that everyone starts at the same time, all the categories, whether it's, people doing the short course, the long course, whether it's people in tandems, when you think about professional or even, domestic road racing, like everything's categorized, everyone's separate. You have a Cat 4, you have a Cat 3, you have all these categories, everyone's kind of doing their own thing. And with gravel, like everyone's together, everyone's starting together. People are, on the course, and especially at Croatan, you're seeing all sorts of people at all points in time. And it creates a sense of, belonging and community and like this shared experience, even if it's, you finish and you hang out at the end and you grab a beer, get some food. And, it's a much more social experience than, I found on road. And there's still, a place for road racing. I think, the Tour de France and Paris-Roubaix and San Remo are always going to be kind of the pinnacle of, professional cycling. But it's cool that, so many people of all different, abilities come together for these gravel events. And it's just also more relaxed. I mean, it's so cool that, there's less rules in place. There's no, even at Croatan, I was expecting us to like, probably just blow through most of the aid stations, but everyone was pretty cooked and it was pretty hot. So it's like this communal like discussion of like, hey guys, let's all stop here. Let's fill up on bottles. Like, we'll all kind of get rolling when everyone's ready. And not yet. I don't feel it. I'm sure it will come, but like where people are trying to like take advantage of situations like that. And you get a lot of that professional road racing. Everyone's trying to like stab each other in the back to, get a foot forward. And, at the moment in gravel race, it's very much like, cool, like we're all in this together. Like, we'll all stop, we'll all refresh, and like, hopefully the best person or the strongest person wins at the end.
That's cool. That's cool. And the fact that, I did the long weekend. So there were 11 of us, and one of the guys that did the long weekend, he'd only been on a bike for 8 months. And the fact that he lined up at the starting line, in the same place that people of a much different caliber, this is really cool to put all those people together in the same place to start an event together and share that experience. So do you think you're finished with professional road cycling, or is that going to someday in some way find its way back into your life?
No, I think I've ticked that box. I'm still a huge fan of the sport, probably more of a fan of it now than I was when I was racing. Still watch most of the races on TV. The first thing I do in the morning after I make a cup of coffee is, check, some cycling website to see, the results. And I still have a lot of buddies racing.
Yeah, sure.
I love it. I admire it, but it's very much like it's something I did, but it's not something I would go back to. It's such a big commitment. It's like the lifestyle you have to live to be at the top is just it's so focused, and it's just getting more so every year, whether it's altitude camps or, sleeping in an altitude tent. It's just, the level of commitment is so great that, I enjoy what I'm doing now, and, I'm proud of what I've done on the road, but I can, happily say hey, I did that, got to do most of the races I ever wanted to do. And, don't really need to go back and prove anything to myself or anyone else.
Cool.
So now that you're wrapped up and enjoying, I wouldn't say enjoying, I mean, it's blanked out on that one. Now that you're wrapped, I mean, so like training wise now, and you have a newborn. So how did you get ready with, like, I guess Croatan was your kickoff for the season. Like, how was your winter and prepping, especially living in Vermont?
With a baby.
Yeah, I mean, we do have long, cold winters up here. They're dark. But that's probably been one of the best things about all this is that, I kind of get to do all these things that I didn't used to, like from November, I'd go back to Europe and start training, and you're riding the road all the time, and that's all you're doing. So I do a fair bit of, backcountry skiing or cross country skiing. I'm also fortunate I work at Wahoo. So, I spend a lot of time, I wouldn't say a lot of time volume wise, but probably compared to most people who live anywhere else, like indoors, just riding on this program called System. I can jump on in the morning, do a 45-minute workout, maybe do a 45-minute workout at night, and just kind of really just stay active. My goal through the winter is just to, stay fit enough that when, warmer temperatures come, or when I get to go somewhere warmer, I'm able to put in a big block of training. So I went out to Southern California in early February for a week. And then 2 weeks before Croatan, I was down in Mexico with a buddy, just kind of randomly. And Colin Strickland came along, and we did a 4-day bike tour down there. Cool. I mean, like I said, it's funny because like my mindset of being a professional road rider is so much on like the consistency of these big, hard training miles and a super regimented program. And all of a sudden I'm just doing what I feel like when I have time for, and it seems to be working.
It's what your body's responding to, probably more than any. I mean, it's your body's going to tell you what it wants to do. And you know what level you want to be at, and it's going to get you there.
Yeah, and it's just I'm also having fun with it. It's like when I get to go out for a ride, like I enjoy it. There's plenty of times when I was racing professionally on the road, and like you just get through a workout, and like it's your job, and you're just trying to do it. Versus now, it's like if I got 2 hours to go sneak out for a ride, I love doing it. Or if I get, if the weather's nice early season and I get to go out for, a long 5-hour ride, I'm like so happy I get to go out and do that. Like I said, I've fallen back in love with riding my bike, which is, such a kind of a rare thing for someone who's been doing it so long. I have plenty of friends who retired from pro road racing and just didn't want to touch their bike again. So I feel fortunate that, I stopped at a time when I still love riding my bike.
That's awesome.
I think one of the best things I've heard in a while was that it was one of your podcasts was your recap for 2022, or just not recap, the start. It was like the first episode. You were up all night with your newborn, and you told your friend you were going skiing, but instead of you slept for like an hour or something. Sounds a little weird, like I'm a stalker, but you were like, I don't want him to wake up, and you guys went skiing like it was so early. You didn't want to bail on him. Yeah. And you just chugged away with it. So that was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is like, when you're racing on the road, like you're so focused on your recovery. And obviously now, like, I'd love to be able to sleep more and take more naps, but anyone who's got a newborn, you realize you can't always do that. And like my windows of time to exercise is limited, so I make like, this winter, I did do a lot of backcountry skiing, which means, I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm on the mountain by, 6, skiing. I'm back home by 9, so I can be back in time for work calls.
Yeah.
But again, it's just that I think, one thing we probably all underestimate is like the psychological, bump you get from exercise. And like, I can just get through a day so much better having woken up at 4 a.m. and done some exercise. And if I woke up at 8 and just, didn't do anything, I just feel like I grind through the day. But if I can get up and get out and get some fresh air and move my body, I just feel so much better throughout the day.
So before we switch gears and talk about the actual race, can we do a bike check on the winning setup? That's what I want to hear about, because I wasn't there when you came back in, so I didn't actually get to see the bike and everything. What were you riding? How was it set up? And
yeah, this is the first race I'd done on. Last year I rode the Specialized Diverge, and then this year, which is the bike, it's got the Future Shock, which is like 20 mils of suspension up front. And the headset, it's more of a slack geometry. It's a great bike. It was first and second at Unbound last year with myself and Lawrence Van Dam. But yeah, in, I guess it was October, Specialized came out with the new Crux, which is, traditionally was their cyclocross bike, but they've adapted it to be more of a gravel race bike. And this is my first race on it. It is freaking light. It is a weapon. It feels it feels a lot like more like my road bike than any gravel bike.
Nice.
So it was my first time racing it, which is, a good test. And that's, part of the reason, I know we'll speak about Croatan, but there's not many races that are 150 miles. So it was like a great event to come down to, like, cool, I need to test my equipment here, because, I'm probably not going to do very many 7+ hour races between now and Unbound. So let's give it all a try. All SRAM, running the Access group set now. I do have a 46 tooth chainring up front, which most people aren't running something so big running one by, especially in a flat race. If you're going that fast, like you need that big chain ring. 1044 in the back, Revol wheels, Revol handlebars, Specialized Pathfinder, 42 tires. People always ask me what tires I ride. I always ride the same tire. Like literally, like from Unbound until the end of the season last year, even at Croatan, I had the same, not just the same style of tire, like the same tires. I just keep putting sealant in them. And people are always like messing around with equipment. I'm just like, just buy this tire. They're maybe like you can get them on sale for like $45 a pop. They last for.
I'm a Pathfinder's rider. Absolutely.
That's the tire of the podcast.
They last forever, and they're great for puncture resistance. They're fast rolling. Had those tires on, and then I've got my Wahoo bike computer. Last year ran the Rome a lot, but now I've been using the Bolt, which is kind of a more smaller, sleeker bike computer. Okay. Still decide what I'm going to use for Unbound, but that's the biggest thing with a lot of these gravel events now, is a lot of them are, Croatan did a good job of marking the course, but a lot of these events, people don't realize they're Unbound. There's no course marking, so you need to like really dial in your bike computer. And that's one thing that I spend a lot of time doing training. Just like I'll make a route and just practice what sort of level zoomed in do you want to be to the map screen, because some people, they're too zoomed in and the turn comes up too quick, or you're too far zoomed out and like you can't see the turn in time. So just little things like that, like using the events to practice. Obviously Croatan was a big event, but it's like all kind of building towards Unbound again. So using events like that to just kind of practice and test things out.
Well, no, I would not have thought about, the subtleties of the level of zoom on the bike computer actually being such a factor. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, you think when it really depends on how many roads are in your area. And then also, how fast you're going. Obviously, if you're moving slower, you can probably be a bit more zoomed in, but if you're moving at 20+ miles an hour, I tend to find, usually around 1,000 foot zoom in is usually what I run it at. Just because you can see what's coming up, and, especially at a race, there's times when you turn into a crosswind, you have a climb, so I'm not a tech person, but I'm always flipping through my pages, especially if it's like a hillier course, to see like, oh, like, do we have a climb coming up? Do we have some turns coming up? It's super important to know, what's coming up.
Bike question real quick. It's actually my wife went from a Diverge, and her first ride was the Crux this weekend. And hearing her describe it for the first time tonight was a little, I don't know, it was different. She actually preferred the Crux over the Diverge.
Yeah.
For certain stuff, and she's I mean, you could put her on anything, and she'll just ride it. Yeah, it was pretty cool hearing a lot of cruxes down there, and then seeing you win on a crux.
That's cool. Lori was on her crux for the first time.
Yeah, my
right?
boss was on hers,
Yeah.
but on your crux, I believe it, I know you have a chain guide on the front. It almost looks like a front derailleur for the average. Everyone else, I mean, most people looking, but that is a chain guide, right?
It is, yes. I'm still running a 1x.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out, because I'm also running the SRAM Explorer group set, which is like the new group set. So you have it's a tighter cassette in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still like playing with chain length, just because I am running a 46 up front, so it's,
you're stretching.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, when you're in the 10, like, you don't want your chain to be too loose, but you also have to have enough chain to make it into the 44.
Mm-hmm.
So until I kind of dial that in, I've just been, I haven't dropped the chain on the bike, but I just don't want to drop a chain on the bike.
It was
really
actually
just kind of like a preventative measure at this point.
It was really cool seeing you with a chain guide on there. I mean, that's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's smart. Yeah. I mean, gravel. Those narrow wide rings are so solid, but you never know in a race. I mean,
that's the last thing you want to have.
Oh yeah,
that would seem.
I thought it was pretty cool that you had it.
So you did go out and pre-ride the course. Us long weekenders, we saw you out there. You went by us on one way, and we were coming by the other way. How much of the course did you actually pre-ride?
The entire thing. Yeah.
Really?
So was that the Thursday? Yeah, we were staying over in Emerald Isle.
Might have been Friday. I can't remember which day it was. We went out on Thursday and came back on Friday, and then the race was Saturday.
Yeah, maybe it was Thursday, because
Okay.
you guys had because I left the racetrack just after you all had passed. Yeah, I mean, I was down there. It was a gorgeous day, and the day before we were actually out there, so I rode that first muddy section. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So the next day I was like, it was just muddy.
Yeah.
But the next day I was like, like, I'm also down here. I still want to get a big ride in. So I went to the whole course. There was a time out and back on that big run. I was like, maybe I'll turn around early. But I was like, you know what? I should probably see it, and I should probably just get a big ride in. And yeah, I did the whole course out, came back. Then I actually came back the way that you all went out on 58. So I didn't come over the sand trap on the way back.
Gotcha.
And thankfully it didn't rain again, and that that little section turned out to be quite fun come race day.
Yeah, it got better.
Yeah, I mean, it's something
it got better.
I mean, it's something that I I guess also just with my background of doing a lot of big stage races, my body also just responds a bit better to a big ride a few days before the event rather than just complete easy days.
That makes sense.
Like I said, I just love riding my bike, and I was down there and I had the time. I was like, cool, I'm just gonna go do a 80-mile ride.
So I never really, I don't know how this works for you guys. We watch YouTube and see Ted King tinkering around with his bikes now. Like for you, like, and maybe doing a pre-ride and having a tech issue or whatnot, like, how do you deal with that now? Like, are you learning how to work on your bike, or have you always been a decent bike? I mean, that sounds weird, but something goes wrong right before, like, what do you do?
It's funny you bring this up. I'm not a great bike mechanic, but I know how to do. I've learned over the last, I guess, year, like how to work on most everything on my bike. I still haven't learned how to like bleed brakes, but I can more or less adjust my derailleur. I can do tubeless tires. I can adjust most things on the bike. But I tend to just like try to keep my bike, and this is like a tip for everyone. Like I try to keep my bikes in good condition. So I travel to the race, and very seldom, if never, does something happen to my bike in travel. So you get there, you pack it up right. I use kind of plumber's foam around all the tubes, and I overpack my bikes. When I get there, I build it up. It should be good to go. Like all you should need to do is just on Friday or Thursday after the ride, I went to a gas station, I power washed it, got all that mud off it. I knew that Friday I was just going to do an easy ride. But it's like I said, this is funny you asked me, because people always have these catastrophic mechanicals at bike events. And I'm always thinking, how do people always have these major issues, things that shouldn't happen? They break a derailleur or they snap a chain. I'm like, what? Or, their bars break. I'm like, how do their bars slip? I'm like, how does this stuff happen? So I said, we were staying out at this house with all these Flow Formula guys, and, the Friday night, 6, 7 PM, the race is in 12 hours. And I go down to the garage, and like 4 people had their bikes halfway taken apart. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Someone is changing the chain, they're changing the derailleur pulleys. And I'm thinking, this is and it clicked, and I'm like, this is why people have mechanicals, because I'm like, you all rode today, no one had an issue with their bike, and yet they're like decided like, oh, I better put on this new thing or change this thing, and it's just like I just kind of the same way I race, like I try to avoid risk, and I assume like doing a major overhaul on your bike the night before the race is risky because you haven't tested it. If your bike is good, I mean, you asked me about living kind of farm life. Like our house was built in 1785. It's an old farmhouse. And I've learned like, if it's not broken, don't touch it, because you're just going to open up a can of worms if you try to start tearing something apart. So I mean, that's really, I try to do as little on my bike as I need. I just try to keep it clean, and like, more than often than not, if you just keep your bike clean and good running order, like it's just small maintenance, changing brake pads, changing chains once in a while. And that's pretty much it. Other than that, sealant in the tires, just keep it simple. And especially before a race, like, unless you have like a lot of confidence in your mechanical skills, even then that's when you're going to forget to tighten a bolt or to, do something crucial. Just like, I just advise people the night before the race, your bike should already be good to go. Like do that stuff 2 days before, pre-ride it, and don't touch it. Because I always see people, always hear stories of these horror stories. I'm like, how did that, someone was setting up new cleats on their shoes. I'm like, that is a horrible idea before a 150-mile race. You're going to have a knee injury. Your cleat bolts are going to come loose. Like your shoes were fine yesterday. Just ride the same shoes. Don't touch it.
So my bike, I actually did on Friday for the long weekend on the ride back in. I hit one of those potholes loaded, and it untensioned a spoke, and I had all sorts of issues. And thank God for Joey, who brought a spare bike and actually had a set of wheels and threw them on my bike. So I was actually able to ride on Saturday.
I worked on a lot of bikes Friday night that I shouldn't have, but
same thing. Joey's a strong, buzzed bike mechanic. I give him all the credit in the world. All right, let's take a look at race day. What's pre-race breakfast? Is it always the same, or what's it look like?
Yeah, I work with this company actually who's from out in Oregon called Picky Bars. They make this awesome kind of mixed oatmeal. It's got like chia seeds in there and nuts, and they have this one called Trail Mix Fix. It's got chocolate chips in there. So I always make it the night before, because a lot of these events you're waking up early, so I'll make it the night before with hot water, pop it in the fridge. So I wake up and it's pretty much good to go. So a big bowl of that, couple cups of coffee, usually an apple. And then, that's pretty much my breakfast before every race. Sometimes I'll throw some peanut butter in there or something like that if it's around and I'm feeling like it. And then just staying hydrated, even starting the night before, just drinking a lot of electrolytes just to almost kind of hyperhydrate and, kind of get into the race. Like the first hour or so, I feel pretty horrible just because I've eaten so much the night before, and for breakfast you're just so pumped full of carbohydrates and sodium.
It's an eating contest.
Kind of. It takes a while just to kind of like burn through all that excess carbohydrate, but you need it. Come into the race, that's when you're happy that you ate all that extra food the day prior.
You got any little pre-race habits, practices, superstitions, anything that you kind of got to do before the day?
Not really anymore. When we used to race in the World Tour, we used to have like a team bus, and we all had like our own seat on the bus, and I used to always buckle my backpack into the seat. I don't have a team bus anymore, so no. And all these events are so different. Whether how you get to the race or do you ride there, but no real secrets or superstitions or rituals or traditions I do before. Just try to keep it consistent. I try to prepare as much as I can the night before, so one less thing to, I fill up my bottles the night before, try to get all that stuff ready, just so it's one less thing to think about. So you can keep it as simple as easy come the morning of the event.
And what kind of nutrition do you carry on the bike?
Yeah. So again, it's just like all these events, I'd encourage people just to dial it in training, so I'm using the flow formulas on my bike, in the bottles. So I had 3 scoops of the mix in both bottles, and I prepared 2 extra bottles when we came back to the start finish. That was 4 bottles, but we also stopped, coming back the first time through the aid station and then going back out and coming back. So I think we had, must have drank like 8 bottles.
Wow.
And then thankfully, Flow Formulas was also a sponsor of the event. So I was able to fill up my bottles, there with, the same stuff I was used to, my body was used to. So a lot of calories just through liquids, and then the picky bars in my pocket. So I had eight or nine picky bars. A variety of flavors, just because
Mix it
sometimes
up.
you need something different.
Yeah, mix it up.
Yeah, and then outside of that, I had one gel that had some caffeine. That was later on. There's a physical benefit, but also you kind of get to this point late in the race when you start to get a little bit not cross-eyed, but just like almost more for the mental focus. Especially coming back through the cornfield and through that little mud pit. I knew like, cool, like I need to be sharp. And you think at that point it's 10 hours since you drank a cup of coffee. So just a little bit of caffeine just to kind of focus in at the finish of the race.
That's funny. That was the spot where I lost my focus, because we did that coming back from the long weekend, and some of the folks that came down that were with us, and that was my advice. It was like, keep your focus, because those little potholes pop up like out of nowhere. And coming out of the cornfield, there was that one little section that was kind of sandy. It was a little bit more of like a swale, like a kind of came down and went back up. And all day long, the other times I'd pass through there, that sand didn't catch me at all. But that last trip through, totally lacked focus, and it almost took me down. But I see what you're saying. That focus, that little bit of caffeine can kick you back in.
I also have this weird habit of, I always also carry chewing gum in my pocket, which is weird. I sometimes just get bored, and so I'm just like, I'll pop in a fresh. I mean, it's also, maybe it's like a refreshing like thing. Like you eating all this, drinking all these sugary drinks, and you're eating all these, bars and stuff. And so sometimes I'll just pop in a piece of, some like winter fresh gum, and it's like a bit refreshing. Just kind of, it wets your mouth, and it's kind of just cleansing.
I can see the minty thing too would really serve to kind of like open you up, kind of like get you going. Yeah,
maybe a little bit. I mean, also like sometimes I just get bored. So, if I have a piece of gum and it's like a little bit of entertainment or something like that. Yeah.
So there was a neutral rollout. Now, from us in the back, I have no idea where that ended. Where did the neutral rollout actually end?
I think it was just after, there was that little there was that pothole that had like the flagging tape on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we started
stay right or stay left or something had it on.
Yeah, stay right. Yep. Yeah. So just after that is when they opened up the neutral rollout. I was at the front for that first section, but I'm sure at the back there was, probably could see a lot less than we could see up front.
Right. Well, we were way in the back, so it's kind of like I don't mean any would see that. So on that first lap, when did the front the pack begin to take shape?
Pretty. I mean, that first mud section definitely kind of was the first big selection, which that was only 8 miles in, and then the cornfield. So I think we probably came out of that with maybe 30 riders, maybe another 20 riders or so caught on afterwards on the big road. And then there's that little lollipop that we did out at the end. When both Dylan Johnson and I kind of pushed it through there with another guy, was I think Logan.
Mm-hmm.
We all kind of pushed it through that. There was kind of that rougher section out on the lollipop before you came back on the big road. And we pushed it through there, and that probably dropped it down to maybe 15 or 20 guys. And then kind of every time, coming back through the cornfield and the mud section again, it seems like all these kind of decisive points is when you kind of make the race hard, because it's harder for people to, close those gaps. And it's kind of when people become exposed, because especially coming back in from that whole loop, it was so much headwind, people could just kind of sit on and follow. And it was crazy. And I spoke to Hawkins the other day about this. It's such a fast course, but it's also, because like you think about, if you're on a climb, like someone's going 12 miles an hour and someone's going 6 miles an hour, you're doing double the speed.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get dropped at Croatan out of that front group and they're doing 22 and you're doing 19, you're not that far behind. So like if the front group slows up a little bit, like you can kind of catch them, like you can always see them. So we kind of had maybe we came back into the start finish after the first lap with like 12, 15 riders. And then it kind of shrunk again, going back out. You kind of have that mud and cornfield section in pretty quick succession between coming back in and then going back out again.
Was it difficult to come sort of back to the start at the speedway and then turn around and go back out? I know a lot of people that I talked to were like, that was it maybe it's a mid-pack, back of the pack kind of thing, but it felt like it was like almost they were a little demoralized coming back to the start where they began and then having to turn it back around again.
Yeah, the first time coming back, I was like, really, we have to go back out and do this again? I was joking with the people in our group, like, we should make like some award, like let's do a sprint for the finish line after the first lap, and if you win, then you don't have to go do it again or something. Because I mean, you think it's, you're already, I think we were probably already 3+ hours in, which is still a long ride.
Yeah.
And to think like, wait, we have to go back out and do all of that again, and it was getting hotter and it's getting more windy. Yeah, and it's just like, okay, we're halfway there. You're still
that had
got ways to go.
The other half of the day, I mean, Sector 4 and the cornfield were one thing, and then I guess the other story of the day was the wind. Headwind coming back was rough. Did that impact you guys at all out on the front?
Not really, I guess, in the sense, so heading out for the second lap, I mean, it went a lot faster for me mentally because the group was smaller. So it just feels, I'm just very cautious about like not trying, not taking risks that I don't feel comfortable with, not crashing. As the group gets smaller, you can be more, you can see more. It feels a bit safer. You kind of know everyone's riding style. So once we got out to that lollipop the second time, and we had, I think, 6 or 7 riders, I knew that like, that was going to be, we were going to all come back to the cornfield together, just because coming back in with that headwind, like, it's really hard to drop someone just because you get such a big draft, especially the speed's higher. It definitely played a factor, but, Dylan Johnson kept trying to ride hard before we came back on that lollipop. And, I guess I have more of a road racing background than him. I was like, I didn't say this to him at the time because I didn't want to like give away my strategy, but I was kind of like, dude, like, don't attack these guys because you're going to discourage them from helping us. Like, I want as many people as possible going back towards the cornfield just to help us pull, and he was like trying to like attack and make the group smaller. And my thought was like, cool, let's milk all the cows dry before we attack them, like, let's get everything out of these people. Cause I don't want to pull just, me and Dylan and one other guy all the way back, with 4 other guys chasing you 20 seconds behind. So you have to stay on it. If you can use, it sounds bad, use them, but if you can use the energy of everyone, also everyone's going to get back quicker. So just trying to keep, trying to like almost encourage the group to be like, hey guys, come on, like, let's just keep pulling through. Just knowing, with that wind, it was going to be a slog coming home. So I tried to not do too much attacking out there.
Any issues facing the oncoming traffic from the mid-pack when you're turned around? You're obviously out in front, you're turned around and coming back, and then you've got riders still coming at you.
Well, maybe this is a question for people who are in the mid-pack, and I'd love to hear this. The second time we had very little. The first time we had a little bit coming back through the mud section. And, by that point, there was kind of like 2 distinct tracks.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And, we always try to do our best job of like, letting people know like, hey, we're on your right or we're on your left or we're coming through. And I always feel like such a jerk. Like, my race isn't more important than the person who's, just going back out for their, I feel like everyone paid an entry fee. Everyone's here together. Everyone's trying to have the best day possible. So I feel like a jerk, like, hey, on your left. But I also don't know. I also sometimes get the impression that people love that. Like they love seeing the people come flying by like, wow, they're already almost done. It's hard for me.
I got a huge kick out of it. I got a huge kick out of it. And the fact, and I actually learned something too. Coming back through the mud section in Sector 4, there was obviously a hard charging group coming back out as I was headed in. And I did, I think what was probably the right thing to do. We kind of got out of the way. There was 3 or 4 of us. And it was, the couple of really deep, muddy sections, we were just coming up on them and we saw them coming from the other direction. And it was almost like nobody really thought about it. We just kind of stopped and kind of got out of the way. And to watch how they attacked that mud section and how they charged it as opposed to trying to pick it, it really kind of like clicked in my mind. It was like, okay, charge that. Don't just kind of sit back and let it come to you. You go at it. And so I learned something from that. So, and I think you're right. I think people get a huge kick out of seeing that.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fine line between like, focusing on your race and doing what you need to do, but also respecting everyone else's time out there. But, kind of back to one of your earlier questions that we spoke about, like that's one of the cool things about gravel is like, there's so much shared experience just through observation. In a road race, if you're racing the Cat 5s, you're only learning from the best Cat 5 versus in a gravel race. If you're a first-time participant, you're learning from someone who's done years of it, and you can see that and you can visualize it. So I feel like the level of everyone is raised at every event because they get to see what other people are doing around them, which is something, you don't get in many other sports, which is awesome to be able to have, someone who's a brand new beginner and someone who's a professional all racing together they learn much quicker than they would if they were just out there with a bunch of other beginners.
Were there any issues with the finish having to cross 58? Or did they have traffic control when the leaders came through? That was something we were talking about in the back. We weren't really sure.
No, we didn't. But something that's kind of become like, I don't say an unwritten rule, but like at that point, we knew that like, hey, there were 3 of us at that point when we came back on 58. It's like, hey guys, let's keep it safe. We're going to bring it down to a sprint on the racetrack. We all want to get back to the place safe. No one's going to be attacking on the highway. So, just being smart, there was a cop at the turn with his lights on, but he wasn't stopping traffic.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of being safe and being wise. That's one of the things about these gravel events is all of them are on open roads. So just being aware of, not pissing off traffic as well, because there's, 800 people behind you who are going to come through the same section, and you don't want some angry driver out there.
I kind of
so especially on a big road, just follow the rules of the road. Yeah.
I kind of had that feeling because we weren't really sure. We were talking about it at one of the aid stations we were finishing, how that would play out. And I actually think I even said it. I said, these guys, the way that they're going to approach us on the front, it's going to, there's a gentleman's aspect to it kind of thing. And that's really cool to hear. That's actually how it played out. What was the toughest part of the day for you?
Oh goodness. Probably the first like 2 hours going out. We still had a big group, and like, I feel like there's still a lot of horsepower in the group. And I feel like there's a lot of people who knew who I was. So like I would try to let a small group go with like some of the, Jeremiah and, Will and Logan and Dylan. Like I'd let them get a little bit of a gap. I'm like, cool. Like I'll let them get like 10 or 15 seconds with a group of, 10 people, and I'll sit back and then I'll try to jump across. Just because then you're in a smaller group. But every time I did that, then everyone would come with me. So it was like, it started to become dangerous. Like, like I'm going to let one of these groups go, and then I'm not going to be able to actually get across. So, like just playing into my, strategy is like, trying to keep an eye on everyone, keep everyone close enough without burning too much energy.
Yeah. So, what other races you got on schedule this season?
Yeah, so I'm heading out to Sea Otter next. Probably not racing out there. I'm going out with Wahoo to, do some stuff. And then there's 2 events up here in Vermont. There's a smaller event called the Muddy Onion. And then the next weekend is Rasputitsa, which could be a mud fest.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to Gravel Locos and then Unbound. So yeah, I mean, comes up quick. And that's part of the reason why I was happy to get down to, to do Croatan, was just to get a big long race early in the season, because nothing that I have coming up will be, quite that long. And, it's always great to just, like I said, test out your equipment and nutrition and all that early in the season.
So let's hit those sponsors. Besides your wife, Gretchen, who is it that keeps you out there and lined up at the start?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of people behind me, but yeah, I mean, that's one of the beauties of, kind of what I do now is I get to work with brands that I actually really enjoy. So, headline would be Wahoo. I work full time at Wahoo and manage all of our athletes and relationships. I'm pretty much head to toe in Specialized. Makes it easy on me to not have to, search out a bunch of different partners, whether it's shoes, tires, bikes, saddles. That's all Specialized. Flow formulas for my nutrition, liquid nutrition, picky bars, and then got Thule for when I have a hydration pack. I almost actually threw on a hydration pack going out the second time, but I didn't. I noticed Will did, who finished third, and that was a smart idea. And I had it, and I was like, oh, maybe I should throw this on, but no one else was, so I didn't, other than Will.
I questioned our lead up for this. That was one of the things that like 2 weeks ago, I was like, Joey, what do you think about throwing a hydration pack on? And so we went round and around with the choices on that.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have been worse. It wouldn't have been an awful choice. Especially being such a flat course, the weight's not going to slow you down at all.
It's also, for me, it's a bit of a safety thing, again, with the focus. I don't have to go down and pull that bottle, and I can just throw that hose right in my mouth and stay hydrated and not think too much about it. And that was really kind of one of the things that I was focused on, but I eventually opted not. If any of our listeners want to follow along with your adventures or races or shenanigans, how can they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, I think it's Ian_Boswell. And then I also have a podcast of my own that Joey mentioned. That's called Breakfast with Boz. You can find it anywhere where you get your BOZ, not BOSS. There's someone else who's the boss, not me. And then yeah, that's pretty much my two main kind of social distribution platforms would be Instagram and the podcast that I do.
We'll put links to all that in
but yeah.
the show notes for our listeners. They'll be able to find that pretty easy just by clicking it.
Got some good videos on the Wahoo channel too.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
There are some Frontiers videos
Those are
at Wahoo's YouTube channel, and hopefully more to come later this year.
Now that trainer season's over, it's on a loop on our TV at the shop.
Yeah,
The Frontiers.
Awesome.
No longer Zwift.
I will. Yeah, finally. But I will say in preparation, we did do breakfast for dinner tonight before this,
Mm-hmm.
just to
As
just to
homage.
try to impress you a little bit. I don't know. It was just
What'd you cook?
we kept it simple. We did eggs, hash browns, and sausage. I didn't have time to make anything complicated like waffles or anything, but just enough to get off work and be here in time to do this.
Joey and I have been sitting together one night a week for just over almost three and a half years. 3.5 years now doing this, and
Wow.
it's just enjoyable. And you enjoy doing your podcast. It's obvious as well.
Yeah,
it's
great.
from Besby, and I'm also a listener. And it's really cool. And I think that in YouTube, I think YouTube's been a great influencer because there's some really, really high quality content out there for the world of gravel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, Ian, thank you for joining us tonight and recapping that. We've kept you a long time. Our last little bit, and I hope you're going to stick around and join us for our this or that's. We're going to throw a couple of things out there, and you make your choice. Explain yourself if you like, but you don't have to. I'm going to toss them over to you first, Ian. Then I will give an answer, and then Joey, you're up. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
First item on Croatan, Sector 4 or that finishing headwind?
What would I prefer, or what
Sure,
would I?
sure.
I'd say Sector 4.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, especially the more it got kind of buffed out. It was kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like riding the cobblestones in Roubaix or something.
I also would go with Sector 4 because part of it for me, that finishing headwind, you had the tailwind going out to that second aid station. But the whole way out, you're just watching those people suffer coming back into that wind.
Yeah.
It's like this future vision of what you're going to have to deal with. So I'm going to go with Sector 4. Joey?
I had a microphone in my hand for 10 hours. I just got to live vicariously with that.
Okay.
So
Second item on this week's a bed and breakfast or a chain hotel?
Bed and breakfast. Always, yeah. I really enjoy meeting people, and especially when you travel to different areas, just speaking to people.
Yeah.
And I like the quirkiness of some random bed and breakfasts that you'll find.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'd much rather do the Airbnb than the chain hotel. Although the chain hotel sometimes has its appeal because you don't have to social. Sometimes you don't want to like interact with people, so it's super easy to just like sit in a room like we did on Sunday, Joey.
oh yeah, we were in a hotel Sunday.
We just checked out.
That
Totally.
I wouldn't have stayed in solo. So I would definitely go with bed and breakfast.
Bed and breakfast.
We're in a bed and breakfast town down here too,
Yeah.
so it's
Absolutely.
it's where we live.
And paying homage to breakfast, the third item, bacon or sausage?
Bacon, yeah, always. And I don't know why, but like if I'm to order a breakfast sandwich, I'd always throw bacon on it. Also, bacon's versatile. You can have it pretty much
Do
any
anything
meal
with
of the day. You can throw it in salad. You can throw it in a soup. You can put it on pasta. It's pretty universal.
It's funny. I will go. I obviously bacon. I mean, we actually have done some things where we try to see how much bacon we can fit into different styles of frame bags. I would definitely go with bacon, but when I get a breakfast sandwich, I tend to always go with sausage because it's like feels more substantial to me. But actually, if I could get a sausage sandwich with a side of bacon, I think that's the winner. Joey?
There you go.
Well, like sausage patty sandwich.
Yeah.
We had sausage links tonight.
Which
Only
were
because
good.
bacon would have been a mess.
Yeah.
As far as a 10-minute, 20-minute dinner, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go bacon.
Bacon.
Yeah.
Hey, bacon's a winner.
Bacon. I see more bacon on some of these gravel rides that depend on the atmosphere of the aid stations and stuff. Yeah.
Bacon can also fix your tires, so
Yeah.
that's good too.
True. True.
Last item, and this is a very Ian specific, being a part of the Tour de France field or winning Unbound.
Oh, I mean, I guess I never expected to do gravel. So it was my childhood dream to race in the Tour de France. so there's a lot of like nostalgia with having done that and just been there, and it was such a childhood dream. But there's been a lot of winning Unbound was awesome. That's a hard one. That's a coin toss. I mean, I would say it probably would have to fall to Tour de France just because it was such a childhood dream.
Yeah.
Kind of working up from that since I was, first saw the race, and goodness, when I was 10 years old, to finally make it there was like such a, personal accomplishment. But
cool.
Yeah, winning Unbound's a close second place.
Cool. I obviously can't speak to either one of these things, so
Yeah,
I will flip it to just like watching the Tour de France or actually riding in Unbound, and I would go with riding in Unbound any day of the week. Joey?
Yeah, I would say that's an experience I'm not gonna.
Joey did DK in 2017.
Yeah,
Nice.
the experience itself, you're just not gonna replace or have something like that.
Yeah.
I'm going out and doing Gravel Worlds this year. It's going to be my my like one big Midwest thing. I think it's a long ways for
Midwest
us.
is different. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about experiencing that.
East Coast is the best coast, but
Yeah. Well, it's about time for us to shut this thing down.
Yeah.
Ian, thank you so much.
yeah, I told
for
you
joining
30
us.
minutes, 40 minutes max, and we're at an hour.
We're
so.
at an hour. So we've taken
Oh,
so
that's
much
all
of
right.
your time.
Tell
to-
your wife thank you.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Yeah, she's dealing with our daughter, who maybe you've heard crying in the background, but
It's okay.
hopefully she'll be sleeping. She'll be
get-
sleeping by the time I'm done.
We get dogs barking, and
Yeah, my dog and wife are at
Yeah.
dog
it's all
class,
good.
so.
It's all good. Thanks
Yeah.
everybody for listening to this episode of Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt. If you enjoyed the podcast, maybe consider joining our Patreon family. Joey, how can folks get in touch with us?
GravelTravelDirt.com, and our Instagram is Mid-Atlantic GTD, and Ian just gave his credentials a little bit ago.
We'll put links in the show notes.
Yep.
Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt, folks, is recorded this week from right here in Joey's kitchen in Solomons, Maryland, all the way up to a goat farm or chicken farm in Vermont. Thanks for riding along. Until next time, do good, be nice, go slow, respect others.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.